Okay.
This one.
Oh, wait.
Sorry, all sorts
No,
of
that's
issues.
okay.
Oh, now it's back to you, Annie. You need to say something, Shayna, maybe.
Okay, there we go. Can you see me
There.
okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this right here is my tail. I'm just gonna flip it back here out of the way because we're not gonna be doing anything with it until it's time to weave
Okay.
it in. And I'm gonna take the needle out. So here's the first stitch that we're gonna work into.
I'm taking a third needle
Yep, so third needle.
and I'm working on the top needle.
Yep, so we've got, this is the front side of the sock, so this is the right side, because our purl bumps are back here. This is the wrong side. So I want the right side facing us, the needle that's on the top, we're gonna knit
Oh,
in.
I have the
that
right
first
side
stitch.
facing us. I thought we had the purl bumps facing us.
Initially we did because we had to flip it over, but now we're kind of turning it back now that that tail is out of the way. Sorry, I'm trying to make it easier to explain which stitch to work into. Not doing a great job, apparently.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this very,
I don't know. Okay, I don't probably have the tail in the right spot, but I'll just swing it here.
basically, as long as the tail is kind of, see how it's in between the needles there? I'm just gonna wrap it behind our
Okay.
yarn that we're
Okay.
working with, because that'll kind of help catch it and keep it
Okay.
out of the way. So we're gonna knit into the first 4 stitches. And like I said, it will be a little bit tight. These are a little bit of a pain to work into, but it gets easier as we go. Oops.
The first 4 stitches on the top needle. And how do I
Yep.
keep the, having trouble keeping, okay, I maybe need to pull my needle further.
Yeah, you're probably gonna be working at the very, very tips of your needles for this part.
Yeah, but I was, yeah, trying to keep the one from falling off the bottom one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this cast on always kind of feels a bit like knitting gymnastics.
Splitting my yarn here.
Yeah, I know it's, once you get those first 4 though, you can kind of break it apart like this, so it's a little bit more flexible. And the other option, you can always just slip those first 4 stitches on. I find it really, really fiddly to try and have all the stitches in there with just the beginning cast on bits and 3 to 4 needles going. I always end up dropping needles and then I have to start over the whole cast on. So I always kind of like to do where I actually knit into the stitches instead of just slipping them and going from there, because it just feels a bit more secure, I guess. And I end up having to do the cast on less times.
Okay. Hold on, I somehow got some of the yarn from one of the bottom stitches onto my needle here. I have to try and figure out how to get rid of that without losing my.
No worries, just take your time.
Make this one bigger. Okay. Okay, yes, it's kind of a mess, but I think I've got the first 4 stitches knit.
Okay, and with your first pair, it probably will be a little bit wonky looking. It's okay. They'll still wear just fine. And everybody has kind of a wonky looking first pair, especially with this cast on. So don't worry or stress out about it. It's all practice and you're learning a lot of new skills right off the bat here with this one. So no worries that way. So now that we've got our 3 needles in, we've got 8 stitches still on this back needle, 4 that we just knit, 4 still on that cast on needle.
Uh-huh.
And so now we're going to use another needle and knit across those last 4.
Okay. How do I hold on to that?
Again, it's still going to be pretty tight, and the extra needle makes it a little bit more flexible, but also there's a whole extra needle in there to get in the way. So just be patient and take your time. Because if we need to,
Yeah, I
with
guess
all
I've
the,
never done a cast on, yeah, like this where you only thing I've done with double pointed needles in a cast on, you cast them all onto the same needle and then you split them apart afterwards.
yep. Yeah, and this is kind of the same thing. It's honestly, it's kind of like if you were to reverse engineer knitting a Kitchener stitch, I guess. And, you know, Kitchener stitch you do with a sewing needle, but basically we're trying to create that same look without doing that. That last little bump on this one, it should be the slip knot, so that might be a little bit tight to work into, but especially with these colors, doing this cast on always makes me think of a Venus flytrap.
Okay, I think I got those last 4.
All right, perfect.
done.
Now we get to work across the next one, but there's a little bit of a trick to the one with the 8 stitches that we have left, because oops, if I can get it to focus here, the stitches are usually twisted, but I don't know, somehow mine aren't. Normally they're twisted. I don't know what I did differently. With yours, when you look at them, does the front leg look like it's pointing to the right or to the left?
Which way am I supposed to be? Am I
Oh,
supposed to
sorry.
have the front side up or the? right
Yep,
now?
with the front side up.
Okay, the front side up.
Oh
And,
no, mine are twisted. I don't know what I was doing. Okay.
let
So they
me-
are twisted.
So I'm supposed to have, okay,
So I'll show you
Okay.
kind of on,
I'm on the opposite, I'm supposed to be like on the opposite side of from where the tail is coming, right?
yes. Yep. So basically we're just kind of turning it in a circle and we're working around the stitches. So we started off over here and we knit these 4. and then we knit these 4, and now we're turning so that the needle that still has the 8 on it is on top. And that's the one that we're going to be working on next.
Okay.
But this bunch of stitches, because of the style of the cast on, they're twisted. So if we knit into them normally, they're going to cinch up and be tighter, which some people that knit loosely like that. It looks a little bit different. So there's that. I mean, you can just knit into them normally. It's not going to like ruin your sock. But in general, with this row, you want to knit into the back loop.
Okay.
So instead of knitting normally, you just insert.
Yeah, I know how to knit into the back loop.
Okay, good deal. I was teaching a class a couple months ago and I had people that didn't know what I was talking about with that. So I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't assume. But yeah, so knit into the back loop on the next 4 stitches.
Okay.
And this row should be quite a bit easier than the last one was.
Splitting my yarn.
Oh, that's always frustrating. And this is definitely, even with good yarn, this is a very splitty cast on. Just because there's so much finagling of things.
That's like, this is a stitch that I. Ah,
It's okay, just take your time. And if you need to, if you're off on stitches or something like that because you know something got pulled over in a different part, you can just quick do a knit through the front and the back. You'll have one little purl bump, but it's at the very tip of the toe, so you know it's going to be inside a shoe.
oops. Yeah, I think I lost a stitch somewhere because I only have 3 left.
That's okay. Honestly, if you want, since you've got 3 left, what we can do, because we're going to use our 5th needle and just knit through the back loop along those ones. On the very last stitch, just do a normal knit front and back, and that little purl bump will kind of get hidden in the side because we'll be doing our increases and stuff over there. Or if you want, you can do make one before the last stitch.
Okay, so I'm going to take the 5th needle and do those last stitches.
Yep.
It's too many needles.
I know. That's why, like I said, some people like to just slide the stitches rather than knitting into the cast on. But for me, that's like just drives me crazy. I can't handle it. This is bad enough. but this will go away pretty quickly. We'll get onto the increases here next. So it won't be quite as crazy making.
I was gonna pop in
But-
with a comment. Because I have a tremor, I can't hold that many needles and not drop them. So I end up using small circular needles
Oh, one on each
instead of
side.
5. Yeah, instead of the 5 double pointed, I can use 2 small, well, relatively small circulars, like 16-inch. So you
Mhm.
can wrap them around instead, if that helps, Kathy.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way I can do that many needles and hold on to them when my hands shake that much. So
No, and that 100% makes sense. Cause like I said, this for me even like drives me crazy. And I've had some of my friends got really into making the little knit toys and everything. And some of the ones that they made, I'm like, those are awesome. I would never make those because that looks like the worst project ever to have to make. I know some of the stuff you can do I-cord with, but some of the other little things, it's like, no, I'm happy that you can make that. I'm not going to. That doesn't look fun.
yep.
So I'm gonna end up with 12 stitches total then, right?
You should still be at 16 stitches total. So 4 on each needle.
But when I finish, wait a minute. I've got, okay. All right, yeah, okay, I missed that one. Yeah, I do still have 4 needles here. Yeah, okay, yeah. I was
Okay, good.
I was missing the one on the bottom. I don't know, we're
worries.
probably all messed up as far as where they're supposed to be, but there are 4
I know, it
stitches
takes
on
a little
4
bit to-
needles.
Well, the nice thing is we will be increasing pretty quickly here, so you'll have more fabric to kind of help hold them in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break some of my extra tail off so it's not quite as long because I'm not going to weave in my tail quite yet. But I'm actually going to be using my tail as my beginning of round marker. If you would rather use actual stitch markers, go ahead and put one of the locking stitch markers on your working yarn here to mark your beginning of round. Or like I said, you can just use the tail too, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I don't understand what you mean about using the tail, but I'm gonna use
Oh,
a stitch marker.
Yeah, go for it with the stitch marker. Basically, since I can see that it's coming off from between these needles, that's how I'm going to know that that's my beginning of round.
It's not gonna end up in the same place all the time. That tail is gonna be moving. So where do I put the marker? I put it,
Just clip it right onto your working yarn, and then you're gonna slide it between your needles here so that it's out of the way. But that way it'll be marked for you.
I don't put
As
it
we go.
on the needle?
Nope, that's why you want to use a locking one because you'll actually put it right on the yarn because it's going to be right in between your 2 needles here.
Okay,
Let me grab one really quick and I can show you what I mean.
okay. Well, that's weird.
Okay. All of my stitch markers are in projects. So this is going to be kind of a weird marker to show you with, but it'll work. So I've got right here between these 2 needles is where my round starts.
Okay,
I'm going to take my locking marker, clip it right onto the yarn,
mhm.
and then pull it down between the needles. As I said, this one's giant, so this will be weird and horrible.
Okay.
But then you'll just kind of let it sit there as we continue to work around, and it'll just stay clipped in that spot as we work on the sock, because it'll be closer than anything else to the middle. And as we go, we're going to be making increases. So you'll actually see a line form where it'll actually, like, this will be right in the middle of one of the lines. So it'll be pretty obvious where your beginning of round is, if that makes sense. Do you get it okay? Or is it still
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, I
confusing?
have it on there.
Okay, good deal. So then what we're going to do next is we're going to do a knit one and then a make one right. So to do that,
So I'm picking up my 5th needle now again.
yes, yep. So basically we're going to have the 4 needles that stay in the sock, and then we're going to be knitting with the 5th needle. And it looks intimidating having all the needles in the sock, but having these other 3, they're kind of just there holding the stitches, making it easier to work on the stitches on the active needle that we're using. Sometimes they get in the way, but eventually as the sock gets a little bit bigger, they won't really be in the way. They'll be more useful than frustrating.
Okay, so I'm doing what now?
Yep.
In the
So we're
next-
going to do knit one
A knit
into this
one.
very first stitch. Yep, and it's just a regular knit one. I did mine really tight.
Okay.
There we go. Normally I'm such a loose knitter, so I always forget with this cast on. I always cast on too tight. So we've got our knit one, and then to do the make one right.
Hold on a second, I'll split my yarn again.
Oh no, you're okay.
Get some more. Okay, knit one. And then what? Knit one.
And then we're gonna make one right, which we're gonna take this little bar between the stitches.
Mhm.
And to do a make one right, you actually want to go from the back to the front with your left needle to pick it up and put it on your left needle. And I want to make sure, sorry, sometimes it looks a little bit different on the camera than what I'm actually trying to do. So I want to make sure I'm showing you. Oh, I grabbed the tail. Okay. So if it's helpful, you can use the right needle to lift up that little bar and put it on your left needle.
Yeah,
My tail.
yarn is too split.
If it's easier, you can just do a knit front and back into that first or second stitch. And it can just be a design feature that way. Basically, you just want it to have.
Yeah, I can't get that.
That's okay. We'll just switch it and do a knit front and back into that very first stitch
Oh,
or the second stitch.
Second stitch.
Let's just do it into the second stitch. So we've got 3 stitches there, and then knit the other 2.
okay, I'm never doing this again.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you'd rather, we could switch and do the cuff down.
No, because eventually I want to do knee socks if I'm gonna do socks at all, and
One
so
thing you
it'd
could
have to
do,
be from the toe up.
because you don't necessarily have to do them from the toe up. If you really hate doing this, you could do where you do a provisional cast on at the ankle, knit down to do the heel and the foot and the toe and everything. And then you put the provisional cast on back onto your needles and work from the ankle up. So you'd kind of be doing
Maybe-
a little bit of both.
Let's keep going, as is. I guess I got those eventually.
It's
I
it's
have-
a lot of new stuff to be
I
thrown
have
at
5
us.
stitches on there now.
Yep, perfect. So then what we're gonna do, since we want to get an extra one on this one also, basically we're gonna keep the 1 stitch on the edge as just a knit stitch. So we're going to knit to the second to the last stitch. And then in that second to the last stitch, we're gonna do a knit front and back. So that'll be our increase stitch. That makes
So,
sense?
okay, my tail is in the way here.
Those tails, it'll quit getting in the way once we get a little bit more into the sock.
Okay,
But
so I'm gonna knit the first 3 stitches.
I knit the first 2 stitches,
Knit the
and then on that third one, we'll do a knit front and back.
Okay. Um, Oh. There's 2 stitches. Um, Okay. Knit front and back, and then what, knit the last one, or?
Yep.
Whoop.
And so now we're completely on the opposite side from our beginning of round.
Okay.
And then we're basically going to do the same thing over the next 2 needles. So we'll knit the first stitch, do a knit front and back, and then knit to the end of the needle.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what the next needle is I need to knit from.
Oh, sure. If you kind of pull the working yarn out away, you'll see which needle it's coming off of. And the needle right next to that that's crisscrossing it is the next needle you're working with.
Okay, it's okay. It was twisted, so I couldn't see it. So that it should still have 4 stitches on it, right?
Right. Yep. We're going to be adding the 5th stitch.
So I'm going to be knitting the first 2 and then knit front and back.
Nope. Knit the first one and then knit front and back.
And then knit the last 2.
Yep.
Okay,
All right. Now we're on the last needle for this round. So we're going to knit 2, then knit front and back and knit 1.
start this. Okay, so now I knitted around 2 needles.
Oh no. Able to see what to do.
Knit 2, then knit front and back.
And then knit the last one.
Trying to do the knit front and back here first. Not getting more than needle. Front and back, okay, and then knit the last one.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yay. So that's what our increase round looks like. I don't know, are you able to look at your pattern?
let's see, turn the page here. Okay, so we did the cast on.
Mhm. We actually just did round one, but we made some adjustments. If you have a pen, I'll tell you what the adjustments are, because that way you'll be able to keep working on your toe.
We didn't follow the pattern.
No, because the pattern says to do a make one right, and so we adjusted by doing the knit front and back, so it was a little bit easier. So the pattern itself, like in its essence is the same. The exact instructions are just slightly different, so I just wanted to make that easier so that you can do it even if I'm not here.
Okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so for round one, where it says knit one, instead of make one right, cross that out and write knit front and back, so KFB.
Okay,
And then you'll knit to one stitch before marker, which, oh, I forgot to have you put a marker. So we have the beginning of round marker. The opposite side of the sock is another marker. So like if we have our beginning of round marker on this side, you're gonna want to have a different marker over on this side so that you know the halfway point. Does that make sense?
but it's too late to do that now, right?
Oh no, we can add it on the next round. I'm just explaining because in the pattern it says knit to one stitch before marker,
Okay,
but you're actually going to knit to 2 stitches before this halfway marker.
okay. So knit one, knit front and back, knit two stitches before marker.
Yep,
And then make one left or no?
yep. Go ahead and cross that out and put knit front and back.
Then knit one, slip marker, repeat from star once more.
Yep. Yep, because we're doing the exact same thing across the first half and the second half. So that those same instructions will be the exact same for the toe. Really, the only time that it'll change for what the instructions are from the top to the bottom with this sock is when we get to the heel. And so, yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, not right now, but
Okay. We'll get there. We'll get there. Since it's a stockinette sock, we don't have to worry about patterning or anything. And so basically what we're wanting to do is, since this is the toe, we've got our increases on this side and increases on this side so that the sock gets bigger each round for a while. Because if we had the increases at other random spots, it wouldn't be the right shape. Whereas this will give it a nice line of increases on either side. So it actually is sock shaped.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna keep doing that round one until we have a total of, for you, it'll be 32 stitches. So you'll want 16 stitches on either side. So 8 stitches on each needle. So we'll keep increasing every round till you have that. And then once you have that, we're going to do an increase round every other row. So you'll knit a row and then you'll do that same increase row that we've been doing. And what that does is doing the increase row like one right after the other right away gives it a little bit of a quicker increase. And then when we add in extra knit row every other row, it like gradually decreases how quick we're increasing. So you get an actual like toe shaped sock instead of like a weird wedge or like a hat or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can we do another
Oh yeah,
round
Yep.
so I can see where to put that other marker?
yeah, no problem. I just kind of wanted to give you the heads up of like where we're going with all this, so that you can kind of start to visualize what's going on. Because I know right now it just kind of looks like a little weird blob of yarn.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm
yep,
not
we'll do another round here whenever you're ready.
trying to figure out what needle I go to next.
Oh, sure. If it helps, kind of look at the back and wherever your working yarn is coming off of, the stitch directly to the left is going to be the next stitch that you're going to want to work. So here's my working yarn. The
My
next
working
stitch over
yarn
is this one.
Is, okay. But it's to the right.
Your working yarn
Mhm.
is?
My working yarn is yeah, I can't figure out what. Oh, let me decide this. Okay, I'm supposed to have the right side up, right?
Yep. So then your working yarn, like mine is coming off of this stitch. So if you kind of
Yeah.
hold it straight up from the stitch that it's on, you can see mine's coming off of this stitch.
Okay.
And then the stitch directly to the left,
All
because you
right.
kind of almost have to look like you're working around in a circle.
All right. I guess, yeah, it was twisted. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, it's hard to tell which is the right side, and which is the wrong side right now. But
Oh, you'll get there. Like I said, the first socks especially always look kind of wonky and take a lot of practice because you're learning a lot of skills with this. Especially like the toe up socks, like I said, in my opinion, are more difficult than the cuff down ones, just because of the sheer amount of things that you learn in the very first
Yeah.
couple of steps.
okay. So I knit one.
Mhm.
Hopefully I'm doing this is on the right needle. Knit front and back.
Mhm.
Front, back. Okay. So knit to, okay, so now, okay, so now I knit the other three that are on here,
Yep.
and then there's supposed to be a marker, or,
Not quite yet. That's where I messed up and should have had you put the halfway marker. We're actually going to knit across the next needle to the last two stitches.
oh, okay, so,
So each half of the sock has two needles, just to make it a little bit easier to knit around the circumference.
uh-oh. You know what I just did?
Hmm.
Instead of using another needle,
Did you pull it out?
I used the needle that had the yarn coming off of it and knit with that.
Whoops.
Instead, so now I've got. Okay, so what am I gonna do? Start over?
You don't necessarily need to start over here.
Or
Let me,
just transfer these stitches to another needle.
yeah, there you go.
One. So how many should I be transferring? How many should I have had? 6?
Let's see. Yes. Yep, you should have just knit 6 or added 6 stitches to your needle.
Three. I'm not used to having to pick up a new needle.
I know, it does take some getting used to. And it does get more comfortable as you go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Six. Okay. Now. Okay, so now on these next 4, no, there's 5.
Yep.
I'm just knitting them all until,
To the last 2. Because this is where we're gonna put our halfway marker in. So you're gonna knit to the last 2 and then do your knit front and back.
I don't think this is worth it. I think I'll just buy socks.
Oh, it does take a bit to get used to it and get everything down. It is really fun though. Socks are like one of my favorite things to knit, and that's honestly, it's kind of my comfort knitting, because once you get the mechanics down of what you're doing, it's really nice because you have a bit that you do on the toe to get things set up. Then you can get to just knit for the foot. You just knit around in a circle. You don't have to do anything. And then you just do a little bit of stuff for the heel, and then you just knit around on the leg till you're ready. If you're doing the knee socks, you'll just have a couple increases along the way, but you know, that's not a huge deal. And then you do the cuff and you're all done.
Okay, to the last 2 stitches.
Perfect. So then you do your knit front and back.
Okay,
And then you knit the last one.
I don't put a marker here.
Yep, this is where you'll put your halfway marker.
Before I knit the last one.
No, you'll knit the last one, and then after that, you'll do another locking stitch marker onto the yarn and mark it there. Because with DPNs, usually you want to just clip it right onto the fabric so that it's right in between the two needles. If you really want to put it between stitches on the needle, you can. It just takes a little bit more brain power because most patterns aren't written that way. So you'll just have to remember where you're adjusting the pattern as you go. Because I know I've done that before, but it just, you have to make sure to either note it on your pattern where you actually put the markers or something that way, because it's easy to lose track of what's actually where.
Okay, so I'm putting the marker on the working yarn again.
Yep. Yep. So now you should have a marker here and here, like on opposite sides of each other. And that way it'll mark the two sides of your sock. So it's easier to tell where your increases are going to be.
I can't get mine to look like yours.
Your sock?
Yeah, I mean, the needles. I think they're,
It can take a little bit of finagling because sometimes they turn themselves around while you're holding them.
twisted, yeah.
Yeah.
So it, yeah, it doesn't look at all like that.
Well, do you want to hold it up and I'll see?
I don't know if you can see.
Annie, is it possible to spotlight Kathy for me? Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah. It looks good. From what I can see, it's looking good.
Okay. I think the tail is,
Yeah, the tails can be frustrating. Mine kept trying to jump in the way. If it's helpful, you can, now that we've gotten a couple rows in, you can go in and kind of like pull it out of the way. And if you want, you can even like kind of tie it in a little knot back there, like a little bobbin. So it just kind of dangles there out of the way, or you can go in and just weave it in so that it's out of the way and doesn't keep trying to interfere.
oops. Yep. Okay. I'm trying to figure out. No, I'm on the. Okay. We have the right side up. Okay, so I can slide the marker. Okay, so that's 2 stitches. Okay.
Yep, so when you're following the instructions,
Okay. So I'm to that halfway point.
Mhm.
And I put the marker on. Okay, let me try and get it out of the way here. Okay.
and then we're just gonna follow
So-
those same row one or round one instructions across
Okay,
this half.
I knit one. Strictures. So then we get the rest of this.
So kind of when you're looking at it, the breaks between the needles that don't have the markers, the only reason we have 2 needles covering half of the stitches on that on either side is so that it's a bit more flexible while you're knitting. Otherwise, you could just think of the stitches between the 2 markers as like, here's one half, here's the other half, and the instructions are written so that like each half is one round of the instruction pattern, if that makes sense. I don't know, that probably just made things more confusing. Sorry. Trying to be helpful.
Yeah,
So I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of techniques and things and the multiple needles and all the little bits where everything's tiny. Can be a bit much. But you're doing really good. Yours looks really nice.
so. Even though the pattern says slip marker, you're never slipping the marker.
That's true.
Because it's,
That's true. I kind of I just wrote slip marker because otherwise people were confused because they're like, you told me to put a marker on and then I never do anything with it. Like, well, that's because it's on the fabric. But but yeah, basically I just kind of have the instruction there so that I don't know. When we were doing the testing, it made sense with the test knitters, but you're right, you're actually not doing a whole lot with the marker other than just putting it on and taking note of it as you get past it.
There isn't really a shorthanded terminology for acknowledge that this is where the marker is, but you're not doing anything with it, like there is with
Yeah.
slip marker.
okay. Well, I lost somehow my second marker that I put on didn't end up where it was supposed to be. It slipped down the working yarn and
Oh no,
now I'm gonna have to.
if you want,
I do 2 needles and then I put it on, right?
yeah, yep. And I was gonna say, if you want, you can actually just take it, since it's just kind of marking the spot between the needles, you can just clip it right onto the fabric
Okay,
like that too. It kind of, it's just to let you know, hey, this is where you're supposed to be doing stuff. That's kind of all the markers are there for, is to
Okay.
let you know, like, this isn't the needle that you knit straight across. This is the spot where you need to be increasing or decreasing or doing something. And so, yep.
Okay, well, I think we're past the end of where the class is supposed to be ending,
you-
so,
Do you feel comfortable with where you're at with it?
yeah, I think I can keep going. How far am I supposed to go before the next class?
Yep, the next class, we're gonna start the heel. So basically, finish off the toe. So do a couple more of the increase rounds like we talked, and then you'll switch to doing every other increase round and knit round. So it'll be 2 rounds that you're doing. And that's in the instructions. You shouldn't have any other adjustments that need to be made to the instructions past what we did for the increases.
Okay, so
Mhm.
continue working only round 1 until you have, okay, so when I have 32 stitches, then I knit the entire round without any increases.
Right.
And
Yep.
then I go back. Okay, so then I go back to row 1
Mhm.
and do the increases.
Mhm.
Just on one row, and then, okay, and then I knit again.
Yep. Yep,
Until
and
I have a
you'll
total of
repeat those.
64 stitches, okay.
Yep. Exactly. And then for the foot is nice because it's just straight knitting. So you'll just knit once you have all of your stitches on. So once you're to 64 stitches, you're just going to knit every round until you're at the length that you'd like to be at. So if you want, you can measure your foot. Just stand flat on a surface, measure from the tip of your toe to the back of your heel. And for your size, you're going to want to be 1.25 inches shorter than what your foot is. So like my foot's about 10 inches long. So I would knit until from the toe of the sock to the needles is 8.5 inches. And then I'm going to add my heel. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So, yep. So once you get done with the toe, it's just a lot of easy knitting in circles.
okay,
Kind of nice breather spot. And then next week we'll pick up and tackle the heel, which
okay,
I promise is not nearly as difficult as this cast on.
okay,
You got all the hard stuff out today, I promise. The rest of it's nice and easy. It's much more downhill from here.
okay.
All right.
Hope so.
Make note of how many rows of plain knitting you do too, so you can duplicate it on the second sock.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
I personally just don't care that much. But you are very correct, especially like if you are making socks with like the self-striping yarn or something, it is good to know exactly how many if you want them to be exactly matchy. I generally just go until I feel like it's good enough. But I also have a much more flexible view of how perfect my knitting needs to be than I think a lot of people do.
yeah, I'm generally pretty perfectionist, so. I
And
will
that's
try and
okay.
remember to do that.
That is
Okay.
okay. But yeah,
Thank-
so go
thank you,
ahead. If you
Shayna.
have any questions, you can always shoot me an email too. It's just shayna@yumiyarns.com.
Okay, let me.
And I think it should
find my
be,
pen here, okay.
oh, that's okay. It's right on your pattern.
Oh, okay,
No problem. Yeah, it's and if you want, I can tell it to you again. But yeah, it's just my first name at
it's
yumiyarns.com.
Shaina,
Mhm.
Shayna at.
YUMIYARNS.com.
Okay, I see on the pattern you got some tutorial links, or would that be active in the PDF?
Yeah, I actually all of the stuff that we've been going over in class, I actually have a whole video series on my YouTube channel walking through everything that we've done.
Okay.
So if you need a refresher or anything, you can just go right onto my site. There's a tutorials page, and if you scroll down a bit, you'll find all the sock tutorials.
Okay.
And there's every aspect of the sock that we've covered, you can watch the whole walkthrough of everything.
Okay.
So-
Well, hopefully I'll have, I'll get to the point where we can start on the heel next week. And now does the class start at 3 again next week?
I think so. Let me double
But
check.
that one day was different. But I don't remember which day. Last
Let me
week.
3.
check. Okay, it is 3 next week.
On the 25th.
Okay, and I think we have an hour and a half again next week, and then the last one's an hour, right? I think that's what we did.
No, the next 2 are each an hour. They're all both listed from 3 to
Okay.
4.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
I couldn't remember exactly how I had broken it up. This was actually the first time that I'm teaching this like in a class setting. And so it was kind of a guesstimate of how much time we would need for each section, but I think given all the technology blips today, I
Issues.
think we did pretty well.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll get everything worked out this week, so next week's nice and smooth for us. But-
okay,
But yeah, well, thank you so much, Kathy. And like I said, if you need help, have any questions at all, anything, just shoot me an email. And I'll get back to you on it and we can figure things out from there.
okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
Sheena. See you
Yeah,
next
you're
week.
welcome. Yeah, sounds good. Thank
Think
you,
I'll-
Annie.
You bet.
Try and get on one of